I am thrilled today to have Matt Pitcher with me because he has done some incredible things. I'm so thrilled that you're here, and I just appreciate you being willing to come on and tell us your story. And I think sometimes it's more interesting if you tell your backstory than if I introduce you with, with a couple of like cliche things. So can you just start out by just introducing yourself?
Sure. First, thank you for having me on. It's my pleasure, definitely. Um, but so I was in law enforcement for 23 years. I started with the Charlotte Mecklenburg Police Department. That's in Charlotte, North Carolina. Medium-sized city, not too bad. We had about 2,000 officers in the department. And from day one, from going there, I knew I wanted to be an undercover detective. That was my goal. I got lucky to go into the what was called the ghetto area, or the worst area of Charlotte, on patrol, learned my way. That helped me get to narcotics a lot faster. And then I finally got my chance in 2007 to go to Vice and Narcotics. And then things got a little crazy for me. um, I and I say literally, I literally fell into the first case, the first long-term deep cover case, where the cliche story started with a stripper and an 8 ball of cocaine, and then went into organized crime. I was dealing with the Greek mafia, Italian mafia, and Russian mafia, um, ending with the mayor of Charlotte being arrested about 5 years later. So I was undercover in that case for 2 years, and that was basically the entire time living, playing, and doing everything with my new mafia friends.
Wow, that's incredible.
It was trying, but luckily I'm a very smart person. So as soon as I got out of that, I realized how difficult that was. I did have a newborn baby at the time, and I'm giving you a quick, brief nutshell on all these, but I got home for about a month and then was asked. We had the DNC coming to Charlotte in a year, or it was a little bit over a year at that time, and there were reports that there was going to be a bombing at the DNC. That some domestic terrorist groups were going to plan a bombing, but they didn't know which groups, any details or anything like that. They asked me if I could attempt to infiltrate some of these groups, find out what I could. So, being the smart person I am, I said, "Hey, why not? Sounds like fun." Uh, so I went and went to a couple meetings and was able to embed with these domestic terrorists and spend another year of my life right after this, um, away from home again, living with terrorists. I did prevent. There was a bombing planned. I was able to prevent it. I actually, right hand, received the Medal of Valor for
Oh,
that
wow.
one. That's probably one of the things I'm most proud of in my law enforcement career. It's among the top anyway. Um, and so I did that for a year, and then that was pretty much came back and did other regular undercover stuff for a while. Um, when the first case was wrapping up, like the whole entire case, it became evident that I might not be in the safest place anymore. And so we packed up and moved to Florida in a very big hurry, and became a cop down here for 7 years. Um, I got to interview what we believe is a serial killer for 16 hours, who became my best friend. And then, having done all that, my mental health had, ever since the second case, had really started to decline, and I chose to ignore it. Um, when I finished the second case, I was in decent shape. My blood pressure was 200 over 120, which is horrific.
Yeah.
And so they had me on medication and brought it down at least a little bit. Uh, by 2020, I really wasn't sleeping anymore. I get about an hour sleep max a night. And so I knew things were going bad. I just, again, chose to ignore it. Um, in 2022, I got COVID, and it was pretty bad for me. And then as soon as I got over COVID, I got shingles, which is horrible. And then a month later, or 2 months later, I got an ear infection, which became an eye infection, which dropped into my lungs, became an infection, and put me in the hospital for about a week, and almost killed me. And what I thought was a physical problem with all that was my mental health and not dealing with it, getting it on straight, and not sleeping at night had finally caught up to me. The doctor told me, "You have no immune system at all."
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
So that was good. I finally saw a qualified therapist, or one kind of reached out to me, helped me out, and also diagnosed me with CPTSD, which I guess is the complex version. And kind of doing things like this actually came a long way to help me out with my struggles. Just talking about it, and it used to be that I couldn't talk about it. Like, you would be scared to look at me right now because it would look like it was 2 degrees in this room because I'd be shivering and couldn't get the words out of my mouth. So that was a bit of a long nutshell, but that was my career. And then we can go into details about the undercover cases, which is what most people want to hear.
That's really interesting. Well, eh, yeah, there's so much to unpack there. But I think, where I want to start actually is because, as I said, my husband's also military. And, we're losing 25 soldiers a day. That was the last stat that I heard. It may be different now, to mental health
Suicide.
issues.
Yep.
And I think, a lot of them are taught, and as I'm wondering if you are in law enforcement as well, just soldier up, right? You can't complain, you can't whatever, don't think about it. And they're taught that. But when they come out and they're not in that anymore with everybody every day, it starts to hit them, oh my gosh, this is what I've done, which sounds exactly like what happened to you. Do you think what I don't know. What do you think we could do to help people who are out there protecting us and keeping us safe to keep them mentally safe?
So it's funny because you hit on a passion of mine. Like, I even have um, my buddy of mine started this organization. It's hashtag Buddy Check, and I'm also involved in Copline now, or I'm working on getting to be a volunteer with them. I go to the training here in a few months, but we have got to one that stigmatism, like the soldier up. Same thing in law enforcement, and we also have the, oh, you can't tell them, you can't go be honest with a therapist because if you're honest, they label you with PTSD. They're going to take your gun. If you can't have your gun, you can't be a cop. Like, that's kind of a mindset. It's not true. Like, all that is false. Um, for the most part, yes, there are exceptions to the rule, but you know the whole soldier up. You need to talk about it, and that is huge. Like, because that's exactly what I did. I bottled it up, and I met with somebody the other day, an old buddy of mine that was in the force with me, and the district that I came from, like my original crew when I was on patrol, uh, none of them have come out okay. We're all have different issues, some pretty severe. And I just had a buddy of mine last month, I think it was last month, commit suicide. Um, and like, every time something like that happens, it just breaks your heart, and you take responsibility because I feel like it's all of our fault for not getting, like, not being able to see it, not getting the word out there, not letting. Like, you got to talk about it. You got to talk about it. Um, and you've got to know when you need help. And I'm no different. I mean, I've talked about this some before, and I don't even understand now why when I look back at it. But for like the last year, before I got help, I'd go to bed at night and pretty much pray and ask God, just, can you end it for me? Like, because I wasn't going to commit suicide, but I didn't want to be here. My mind was messed up. I did not want to wake up the next day every time. And it's weird because you can't figure out why. Like, you don't actually have a good answer as to, it wasn't money trouble. I didn't, knock on wood, I didn't have drug or alcohol problem. Um, so I had no good reason. I have the best family I could ask for, but I kept living in what I had done. And if you can't get your mind to trigger out of that, like, it gets dark and painful.
Yeah. I think people don't realize we need people to do the kind of things that you did. We need people to do what the people in our military do to keep us safe, right? We can all sleep at night because of those things. But I think people don't know, and they don't need to know, but how serious some of the things that you've had to do are, serious the things that our military has to do. And it's people look at it like, oh, we wish, let's just take everyone's guns away and not have a military or not have a police or whatever. But people don't realize what would ensue within a day of that.
Right. We want, and we do, we want this belief that there aren't actual bad people in the world, and that would be great if there weren't. I would love that, but unfortunately, that's not the case. And I think here recently, and this breaks my heart, is the opinion of police officers has changed to. Um, Unfortunately, there's a segment of the population that believes we want to go out and hurt people, and I can't. There's not one officer I know of personally that went into the job without wanting to help people. Like, this is a job you take because you want to help people. You don't take it for the money. I mean, I know you can make a ton of it, but that's not why you do the job. Um, Less than 1% of the cops you'll meet that have a bit of the authoritarian complex or whatever, and you can see that. But it is extremely rare. Most people get in and want to help, and I truly believe that that's part of why we're seeing with law enforcement some of the increase with the mental health stuff is because you want so badly to help these people, to help everybody, and then you're trying to grasp the fact of why people are mad at you for wanting to help people and hate you for that. Like, and I think that's because I've noticed more of bad things happening, like unfortunately suicides, actual in police cars right now. You're seeing them do it in police cars. Um, and I can't help, and I mean, obviously, I'm not an expert by any means, but I can't help that has something to do with the fact that that's where the pain and the agony is, and I think some of it is a lack of understanding. Like, why does everybody hate me? Um, it's
Yeah,
just
I think that's a
unfortunate.
good point. Just I honestly don't understand it. I have so much respect for police, and I'm so thankful for police. Because I used to live in gang territory, so I know what it's like to live in fear and hear gunshots every day. And very thankful that there were police out there, who could come if I called. And
Yes.
so, I just want to say thank you to you and to everybody, and to the people who have had unfair things. I think that that is sad, but I think, we need you. We need you a lot. And I wanted to ask, I wanted to go back to the now you said there was a serial killer and he was your best friend. So let's unpack that for just a second. I
Okay.
don't want to ask you the same things that everyone else is asking because I feel like if people want to know those things, they can go on the other shows and ask, right? So I
And
kind
I'll
of want to
also
talk
plug
about.
myself. I do have a book coming out then too, so they'll be able to read on there.
There we go. And I want to make sure that we get all of your links, and they'll be in the show notes and the description and everything, so people can find out everything they want. And I'll have a page on my website that's all about you and all your things, just so that everyone can get everything that they want. Because I think once you listen to this, how can you not want to learn more? And we're not going to be able to get it all. But yeah, so tell me about this. Now, I'm assuming that it was part of the job that this person became your best friend.
That's correct. It was, in a sense, one of the wildest cases that I've ever worked. I was making a transition, like, because I've been a major crimes detective here in Florida, and I was making the switch back to what I know, back to dope. Once you're a dope cop, you always find your way back there. It's just the way it is. But the captain kind of was still using me for any serious crime. And so it's the day before Thanksgiving. And keep in mind, the prior to this, since I moved to Florida, every Thanksgiving had been horrible to me. Like, I had to work. Something bad happened on every Thanksgiving. The last three before this were all murders or suicides that I had to work. And so it's the day before Thanksgiving. She goes, you're not going to get to enjoy Thanksgiving. So I don't know why you just don't stay at the office. And I said, no, I got this one. I'm going to make it. Leave the office. Within 2 hours, my phone rings, and it's the same captain. And she's like, coming back to work. There's a dead female on the side of the embankment along the ocean where I live. So I go back into work, and there's like a dirt path that leads to the female, and then the female's completely naked, thrown into the bushes off to the side. Very clear, very quickly that it's going to be a homicide. No, no gun wound or anything like that. The the victim is face down, so you can't. I couldn't find any signs of injury at that time. Only thing I thought I saw was on the back of the neck, maybe some issues there, but that was it. So it's kind of a, you hate scenes out the gate like this just because you're like, well, this isn't going to be necessarily an easy one. This is going to take a little time. This isn't going to be one day type thing. So I walked the crime scene a little bit, and I do notice there's a broken branch with like a little piece of a fender from a car. And you look at the branch, you can tell it had just broken. So I was like, all right, this could be key. Um, my captain looks at the car piece and was like, "Oh, I'm sending this to one of the narc guys actually." Uh, she goes, "He is unbelievable with cars," and I mean, this thing is literally like this, and I think she's crazy. I was like, nobody in the world, you could send this to a car manufacturer, and they're not going to be able to tell you what car this came off of. She sends them the picture. I say, well, I'm going to go check some local businesses, bars and stuff, look at cameras, that kind of thing, see if I can figure something out. So I take off, and within just a little bit, this detective who she sent the car part to sends back a picture of a full size van, gray in color, and says is going to be exactly this type of van. Obviously, didn't know the color, but was 100% positive that that's what this piece came off of. Again, I think he's crazy too. Uh, Within a half hour, captain and lieutenant come on the radio. We have the van at the McDonald's. It's parked on the side here, matching the description to the T. We're having a marked unit come up and get out with it. So I get my butt over there. Um, and as the marked unit is talking to the person in the van, the rear fender, I notice there's a piece broken out with pieces of tree in it. And I'm like, you have got to be kidding me right now. So they get the subject out of the car, and I asked him if he'd be willing to talk to me at the station. Told him, you're not under arrest, nothing like that, just something happened in the area, and I want to see if you know anything. And he's like, yeah, I'll talk to you, no problem. So we go back to the station, and we sit down, and first thing I always do, because you have habits, like this is how you kind of do an interview. I say, listen, like I said, you're not under arrest. If you tell me right now you want to go, I'm going to let you go. But I said, since we are at a police station, I have this Miranda form, which is your rights. Do you mind reading them to me, signing it, and we'll be good? Sure, no problem. So we do all that. And I say, where were you at just before we got out with you? Had you been at that parking lot all day? He goes, no, I just come, and he names the exact spot where the body was found. I was like, all right, well, this must be the dumbest guy I've ever met my whole entire life. Um, so with that comment, with the branch on the back, I have other people at that point writing a search warrant for the van to search the inside of it. Um, I have like I'll toot my own horn. Like I think I'm very good at interviewing people. That seemed to be a natural thing for me, and I developed a method that I go about it. And so I usually, he already brought that out. He already got me what I needed there. I don't even want to talk about the case anymore for a while. So I just talked to him about his life. He tells me openly that he killed somebody when he was 18 years old. He said it was because they molested his little brother. Truth was, it was this 80-year-old man that they robbed, and he decided for whatever reason that he didn't like him and just killed him very brutally. Um, and then he's telling me about his relationship with God and how he's very close to God and everything there. We take a little time to pray together. And he tells me about his time in prison, and that's when you can really start to see the deviance. He talks about a lot of acts, which I'm not going to get into, sexual acts that occurred in prison. Um, One of the creepiest moments of my life, he's talking about that a little while later, and he's like, I'm going to jail forever for this. I know I am. Like, he still hasn't committed to the crime, but he's kind of gone that route. And I put my hand on his shoulder and say, it's going to be all right, but you need to be honest. And he says, I don't like anybody to touch me, but it's okay if you touch me. And I was like, oh. We end up talking for, it was about 12 to 16 hours in there. And I gave him, gave him food during the time, asked him multiple times, do you want to stop talking? Do you want to stop talking? No, I really like you. I want to keep talking. And multiple times told me, he goes, you're actually, I know we've just met, but I feel like you're one of my best friends. As the interview went on, come to find out, you could tell he had a very big hatred towards females. Um, and I believe he had more of a romantic like towards me. Is kind of how it went about, and he never he never confessed to the whole crime. He basically put another party in there, but he told us where all the evidence was because he had scattered it all around town. And I told him at one point, I was like, I don't get to go home and celebrate Thanksgiving with my family until all the evidence that from this crime is collected. So he's like, well, I can't have you miss Thanksgiving with your family. So he literally told us everywhere, and we had to go out to the T, gave us all the evidence. Um, and it, everybody made fun of me for a while. They said, yeah, that guy, you should get his last name was an animal. And they're like, oh, you should get that animal on your tattoo of that animal. I can actually, I guess his last name was Wolf, and they wanted me to get a wolf. So about a year ago, the trial came up, and I was the lead, obviously, for the trial by the prosecution. I get up on the stand with the jury there, talk about, they play not most of the interview, but a lot of the interview, and showing different parts of it. They showed where I put my hand on his shoulder and things like that. And, explaining to the jury that this is just a technique, right? Because you have to gain the guy's confidence. You have to build that rapport. Like, absolutely. It's what we do. And so, he's right there sitting at the defense table, hearing all of this. I was like, man, he has got to be so mad right now. So finish being on the stand. I get up, get off the stand, and with the jury still in the room as I'm walking back, he says, Matt, I am so sorry for everything that I put you through. I'm like, you have got to be kidding me with this guy. um, so I exit. He did receive the death penalty, and it's one of the first times in Florida that every juror said he deserved the death penalty. That's
Wow.
pretty unusual. Just weird. So that was my relationship with Mr. Wolf.
Well, and that kind of explains the PTSD stuff, right? I mean, I can't imagine the things that you would have heard during that had to be very disturbing. I mean, that's just one case, but very disturbing.
And
Nothing
what
that
he
I want
did
to
to
share, but
and what he did to the female was horrifying. It was the the female bled out inside is how she died.
okay, do you have to go or do we have a few more minutes?
What time is it?
It's 11:08.
Oh crap.
You got to go.
Uh, yeah, I do. I apologize. I'm
No?
more than happy to come back on anytime.
Okay. Yeah, I would love that. I really would. Okay, so we're gonna let's do an official ending. I looked at the time, I was like, I have so many more questions, but okay. All right. Well, Matt, I know that you need to go. I would love to have you come back on the show and we'll do round two. I appreciate your openness and honesty, and I think you're gonna help a lot of people understand what police are going through. And thank you for being transparent with everyone.
Well, thank you. And thank you again for having me on. I'm glad to come back on.
Thank you. You're amazing. All right. I'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks.